everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are doing well. All of you guys who are returning viewers and new subscribers, do not forget to click the button below. Make sure you're subscribed. Give me a thumbs up. It helps the algorithm. I appreciate it. This episode of Beyond the Veil brought to you by a very chaotic full moon in Virgo. The more that I look at this, I have just totally, always sunnied, Charlied out on this entire moon. So I have an interesting presentation for you guys today. We're going to be talking all about this full moon in Virgo that's going to be taking place at 16 degrees, coming in hot on March 7th, 2023. If you guys stay tuned to the end, I'll take you through the 12 rising signs. We'll pull tarot and I'll talk about what the predictions are for your sign. So let's go ahead and get into it. So it's going to be taking place on March 7th, 2023 at 4:40 a.m. Pacific time, 7:40 a.m. Eastern time. So you can be doing your full moon stuff on the evening of the 6th. You can be doing it at any point on the 7th. And this is, this is going to be a really colorful full moon. I feel like the better part of like the next 2 or 3 weeks, they get a little weird. We're going to see the return of some of these mutable squares between planets in Pisces as well as Mars in Gemini. And this moon is just bringing it up. This moon's going to have a hangover effect for like a day or two. And my, oh my, because there are T-squares, there's going to be lots of midpoints activated. So I'm going to talk to you guys a lot about that as well. You guys know every 28 days we have the full moon. This is the full moon that's actually been building since the new moon that we had back at the end of summer, beginning of fall of 2022. So we plant new moon intentions. It takes about 6 months for that to come full circle. And now here we are. 16 degrees, so that's going to be equaling to a degree that is associated with Cancer, yet another new moon that has a Cancerian twist. Homes, families, emotions, the past, subconscious, anything in regards to our physical dwellings, okay? And our intuition. It's kind of hard not to talk about intuition with this many planets in the sign of Pisces. And I have to keep talking about that because the ruler of Mercury, of Virgo is Mercury. Getting a little tongue-tied. The ruler of Virgo is Mercury. Probably because this is a full moon that is very intuitive, which doesn't really mesh well with Virgo type of energy. Virgo is very grounded, right? Very practical. It is a mercurial sign that's about organization and order, health, cleanliness. But we've got the ruler hanging out in the sign of Pisces. So like I said, it's going to feel a little topsy-turvy. Virgo being the 6th sign of the zodiac, connecting to anything with health, animals, our daily routines, our habits, but it also has this theme of working through and purifying something, critiquing something, and making things fully functional, getting down to business, practical, right? It's the element of earth, but it's mutable earth, so it has that opportunity to be more so flexible than the sister signs of Taurus and Capricorn. We are going to see some nice aspects going on with these two signs as well. We're seeing some loose trines, a strong trine actually to Uranus, which is going to kind of help us shake things up a little bit. But when we look specifically at the Pisces and Virgo axis, right? So that's what this full moon is. When the moon is in one sign, we know that the sun is in the other sign, creating this fulfillment. There is a sense of energy kind of hitting that peak, right? And you'll be feeling this really the couple days leading up to the full moon. Even then, I think it's going to get drawn out clear through mid-March as we see like the mutable squares play out. What we're really looking at is the theme between the material versus the spiritual, okay? So we know that, like I said, Virgo is grounded, mutable earth. Pisces is mutable water. They really are complementary to one another. I think that because Virgo is so practical and analytical and detail-oriented, it's complementary to Pisces, which can be more imaginative, intuitive, and it has this very spiritual, subconscious side. Now, this particular axis represents the tension between these two opposing forces, which we see in all of our charts. Everybody's going to have a Pisces and a Virgo house. And it almost forces the need for them to come into balance and achieve a sense of wholeness. And when we're looking at this more Mercurial Neptune axis, there is this sense of working through physical challenges or crisis, physical ailments, right? Bodies and all the things that go on with them. And then we have the more spirit kind of emotional, sensitive, intuitive, subconscious side. So it does represent this mind and spirit, right? Mind, body, spirit balance that we need to achieve. Both of these signs have to do with health and healing. That's the other thing. So it's kind of hard to see a Virgo full moon without hearing topics in regards to health and cleanliness and organization, or clearing something out or perfecting something. But Virgo is very much associated with this, and Pisces is associated with the spiritual aspects of healing, perhaps even the subconscious. So while Virgo may be more practical, like eat your veggies, clean your room, brush your teeth, Pisces is going to say, well, did you get enough rest? Do we need to try meditation? What about hypnosis? And they kind of complement each other and they go back and forth. If you happen to be somebody who has planets on this axis, you might be someone who's drawn to careers in medicine, or perhaps alternative healing modalities, spiritual practices, anything like that that promotes well-being. And obviously we're going to gravitate towards some of this stuff during a full moon in Virgo, because we want to celebrate the archetype of Virgo and incorporate that into our emotional bodies when the moon is full. I think also something else that comes to mind for me is order and chaos, right? Order and chaos. Virgo is so focused on order and structure, while Pisces is associated sometimes with chaos and disillusion. So this axis represents the tension between these two opposing forces and encourages them to find a balance in between. You may find that this is a time where you're on one or the other end of the spectrum. There is quite a strong T-square involving Mars at the time of the full moon, and a very heavy presence of Pisces energy, even in spite of a full moon in Virgo. You may find that also there's opportunities to focus more on creative and sometimes unstructured pursuits. I'm kind of liking this full moon as like something where it creates a situation where it allows spirit to kind of come in, like kind of drop into the body. I know that sounds weird, but that's kind of how I'm interpreting it. With Mercury being in Pisces, and also just seeing this heavy focus on the vision, the intuition, the emotional body, our dreams, things that happen in subconscious states, which allow us to sometimes navigate in a world that feels a little wonky right now. And then also service and sacrifice. I think that probably should have been at the top of my list, but we know that Virgo is associated with service and sacrifice, while Pisces is associated with selflessness and compassion. So this axis represents tension between these two forces and the need to balance them in order to achieve a sense of purpose and fulfillment. So you may find that there are things coming up right now where you're feeling very drawn to a service-oriented project, or focusing more on spiritual pursuits or nonprofit pursuits, or some kind of give back that's going to be helping other people. And full moons really do encourage us to find the positive energies of both of these signs and bring them together and show that through polarity we can actually become whole. And that's what I like about Virgo and Pisces in general. You know, the sixth house is where we kind of clean everything up and we get everything ready before we meet somebody else in the sign of Libra, where Pisces really represents the need to kind of wrap everything up and let some things go, and also have a little bit of faith before we start something new and we move into the sign of Aries. Very, very fresh new energies. After we have this particular full moon, we're going to be rolling into eclipse season pretty soon. We're going to see 2 new moons in Aries and a very highly aspected full moon in Libra. So this is the time to kind of really get our shift together. Now it's taking place at 16 degrees of Virgo, so I want to read to you guys the Sabian symbols for this particular degree. Everybody always asks, this is the Sabian Symbols, The Screen of Prophecy by Roche. And I'm going to be reading to you guys 17 degrees of Pisces, because we round up. If you guys see here, people always ask me why. It's 16 degrees and 40 minutes. So we're going to round up to 17. And I almost burst into hysterical laughter reading this because I was like, how appropriate is this? For those of you guys who have this book, it's page 197. Virgo 17, a volcano in eruption. The keyword is explosion. The theme is a dramatic outburst. The symbol speaks to the outburst, to the unleashing of energy as the result of blind determination to survive. The image of a volcano eruption graphically dramatizes the powerful and volatile display of force that goes beyond normal or expected boundaries due to a massive buildup of internal pressure. On a practical level, this symbol can describe volatile or angry outbursts, uncontrollable weeping, heart attack or stroke, or hysterical laughter. The emphasis on this degree is the need to bring the self back to a normal condition. The implication here is the outpouring of self-preservation that allows internal pressure that might destroy its source to be released. This outburst can also represent birth pangs and genesis, or bringing to the surface previously hidden or unknown potential. At its highest, the symbol represents creative passion and refusal to live a tepid experience or tiptoe through life. Negative is explosive temper tantrums, inflammatory tirades, or a complete lack of self-control, the inability to conform or socially accept conduct behavior. The accent is on explosiveness. This could turn out to be an unforgettable day. Tension that has been building could climax in a crisis with everyone running for cover. Your greatest advantage lies in counting to 10 or higher if necessary. Stay out of what doesn't concern you and try to protect what does. Guard against adding fuel to the fire. Avoid temptation to interfere with the process needs to run its course. And this is going to make so much more sense when I explain to you guys some of the midpoints. Just want to reiterate. Number one, volcano. Okay. Sometimes these symbols are literal. We have got an eclipse. We've got a full moon. Sorry, it's not eclipse season yet. We've got a full moon that's trining Uranus and Taurus. Earth elements. Uranus is explosive. Okay, so it's just out of the blue, unexpected, like lightning, storms, earthquakes. We saw with that full moon that we had in Leo, it squared Uranus, and there was that horrible earthquake in Turkey. Now we're seeing a trine. So this is free-flowing energy. So this basically means out in the world, wherever there has been this pent-up energy, it's just going to pop, right? So that could happen in regards to, volcanic or even more earthquakes. It can also happen in regards to things involving the health industry, pharmaceuticals, because it opposes Pisces, things that relate to the service industry, things that relate to food, right? Because it's trining Uranus and Taurus, which represents physical earth, ground, anything in regards to resources, also power and energy. But that massive buildup until there's like this volatile or angry outburst, uncontrollable weeping, heart attack, stroke. I think some of this stuff will play out literally. I don't like saying that, but I think that that's what's going to happen. Keep in mind, it may be within a week of this that we see more of this. The moon in astrology deals with what's going on with the general collective, the groups of people, right? This is the mood that's kind of in the air. So as we see this polarity between the sun and Mercury and Neptune, it's essentially saying that there is a sense of invisible worlds that are throwing us off, that's confusing us or manipulating, or there's some fantasy, there's some illusion, there's some fog to get through. Quite literally, this can materialize as visibility issues. We can see some very extreme weather with squares that are taking place. I mean, there has just been crazy flooding in California. We've seen some rather extreme weather really all over the place recently, but that's just something that comes to mind when I think of all of that Pisces. Violent storms along coastal cities. We may also see some really extreme things going on in regards to wind and heat, just hearing the advisories for some of the tornadoes that have been going on through the Midwest through this last week. I do think that this is probably going to drum a little bit more of this up. I'm hoping that that's not the case, but it's very possible. I think it's also important to talk a little bit more about Mercury and Pisces. Some people see this as it being technically in its fall. It depends on what type of astrology you practice. Other astrologers consider Mercury to be in Pisces very intuitive. I think I could see it both ways. I'm really looking for positive aspects with Mercury, and I see a number of them, so I feel a little bit more optimistic. But basically, Mercury in Pisces is an astrological placement that has a real significant impact on our ability to communicate and process information, specifically because it's in a Neptunian sign. So this is going to be a Mercury placement that's going to focus more on intuitive communication. So if you have Mercury in Pisces, or if you're experiencing, throughout this transit with the full moon, we're much more likely to need to rely on our intuition and our feelings, our hunches, right? Our gut feelings. Because some things may not necessarily make sense. We may not be able to find the words. We may not be able to express why we feel a certain way. We can have a hard time finding the words literally. Mercury in Pisces does allow us to be more empathic and understand other people's emotions. There can be a sense of us being more compassionate. I think that that's definitely going to be a theme with all these planets going through Pisces. It also allows us to focus more on creative thinking in a much more abstract way. So we have this willingness to explore more other ideas, other perspectives, and our imagination can be very vivid. And it's really great for those of you guys who are focusing on artistic pursuits like writing, music, visual arts, maybe even acting, right? Or working with film. The challenge to this, though, and I think this is a theme because we do see Mercury within range of Saturn, is that we can have a difficulty with boundaries. There can be a sense of having a difficult time communicating boundaries, a difficult time distinguishing our own thoughts and emotions versus other people. There can also be a tendency to take on the problems of other people. And really the lesson of Mercury, I think, in close proximity to Saturn and coming into an opposition with the moon is to learn not to take on the problems of others and learn healthy ways of setting boundaries and protecting our own spiritual energies, our mental energies, like just our space, right? Pisces is like the vibes. Now, I really like this full moon for being able to work more with like dreamy and like reflective energy. So this is really positive for those of you guys who are really drawn to spiritual or like philosophical pursuits. If you have a strong interest in exploring the inner workings of your mind, working with, psychology or learning more about human behavior, maybe you want to be breaking out your tarot deck or your oracle cards, working with a pendulum, really wonderful for opportunities to journal and reflect after meditation, or do some dream work. Keep a notepad by your bed, because I do think that really we're having to go through the other realms of Pisces to be able to navigate what's going on in the physical world with that opposition to the moon. I also think that, the aspects, like I said, are quite colorful. Whenever we're looking at a full moon in Virgo, we want to pay attention to Mercury. Mercury's got a number of things going on here. Probably the strongest aspect that we're going to see is going to be Mercury trine the South Node within about a 3-degree orb. And so Mercury, the mind, right, the mental body in a trine to the South Node is, I just want to let it all go, right? It's just I'm too emotional, I'm too heavy. There is a sense of being like, I don't want to hold on to this anymore. I want to let it go. So water can actually be really helpful throughout this full moon. Taking baths, soaking, staying hydrated. You got to cry. You got to find a way to get those emotions out. It's really important that you do that and you don't hold on to it in the physical body. This can also be opportunities for us to connect to our past. So if you're into like past life regression, if you're wanting to do, any kind of like rituals involving cord cutting, closing the door, letting things go, it's a great time to do it during a full moon anyway. But this really does support with trines to the South Node that we can actually consciously, emotionally, and spiritually start to kind of clear the decks and detach from things that are not serving us, right? South Node in Scorpio is painful, difficult, scary, hard, things that do involve some really difficult topics like death and releasing and letting go and fear, or where we felt abandoned. Equally, we're going to see that Mercury is then going to be making a sextile to the North Node. And this is where I love the magic of like the relationship that Pisces has with Taurus. Once again, think of it like Pisces is creating kind of the blueprint. It's putting everything together. It's sitting there and meditating and reflecting and receiving images in terms of what the dream plan is. And it's relaying all of this to Taurus, and it's saying, okay, Taurus, here's the blueprints, go and build it. Go do it. using the Pisces energy throughout this, really the next 2 weeks is really, really helpful for envisioning the world, envisioning the life that we want to build, that we want to create, making it possible. And so there can be a lot of wanting to run around and get things done with that moon in Virgo and perfect things and be busy. But all of this energy in Pisces is saying like it's time to kind of quiet the mind, right? Just take a step back. Don't get overwhelmed with all the changes that you need to make. And also stay in the body, right? Because Virgo wants us to focus on grounding. We've also got the moon, which is going to be in a trine to Uranus, which is helpful. You know, we're making changes. We're making changes with our health and our routine. We're making changes in terms of our resources. Yes, we can see some financial fluctuations with this. It is very possible. The thing that I would say though is that either clear or definitive or accurate, honest information is going to be very hard to come by over the next 2 weeks. So I would be very mindful with any moving money around, financial transactions, anything like that. We're also coming into eclipse season. We're going to be having an eclipse, you know, the second half of April. So we're starting to feel those energies, even though we're not quite there yet. I mean, we're going to see some rocks and rattles and rolls as planets come into the sign of Taurus and they come into contact with Uranus. There's going to be some shakeups financially. So this is more a time of like, okay, if I haven't done my taxes, getting that in order, getting all my receipts in order, if I have a to-do list and things that I want to do, rather than feeling like I need to attack it head on, maybe you sit down and you meditate and go, realistically, how much do I feel like I can get done today? And how can I come up with a routine that is going to be, you know, a little bit more consistent with being able to keep up with this stuff? We have to constantly be checking in with our mental or emotional health with those oppositions to Pisces. But when the moon trines Uranus, we learn to adapt. So whether you're adapting to a new schedule, you're adapting to a new physical schedule, health, fitness, that can be a thing, or just some dietary changes. All of those things are really well supported with the trines to Uranus. We've also, you know, got Mercury at the Sun-Saturn midpoint. And so one thing that I was really kind of picking up on, just seeing that all of this mutable energy is setting up, is I knew Mars was going to be a prominent midpoint, but the more that I looked into the midpoints, I realized that Mercury is important as well. So we've got the Saturn-Sun midpoint. We know the Sun is about ego and our happiness and our joy, and like that's kind of where the action is in the skies. And we've got Saturn sitting at this 29 and 59 minute critical degree. This is the last hour. That's what I would call this for Saturn. We will actually see, I think within moments after this full moon, Saturn will actually enter into Pisces. So we are going to feel the Saturn and Pisces energy. We will feel it with this full moon. The last degrees of Saturn, what can I say? I mean, it feels like this is the last call. Like this is something definitive that's being decided upon. We're going to also see that Pluto's going to be at 29 degrees. An interesting like week or so period where there will be nothing in Aquarius right before Pluto moves in, and we're going to realize that there's going to be some really definitive global changes going on, especially in regards to freedom and power. But being that Mercury's the midpoint between the Sun and Saturn, we know that this is about our karmic obligations, limitation, responsibility, Saturn, and then the Sun, which is going to be about our joy and our creativity. So when Mercury sits there in that midpoint, it's trying to communicate in a very purposeful manner, right? There can be a lack of confidence when communicating. Maybe we're holding steadily to a definitive purpose when communicating. We have a mind that is able to focus on goals and shut everything else out. So even though we have a Mercury that in theory wouldn't really be able to stay grounded, I actually feel like this is what I was really picking up on just looking at the chart before I even saw the midpoint. I was like, this is where Spirit steps in and basically says, you need to listen. Be quiet, be still, listen. Don't do anything, don't react, just listen. So this can mean that you're literally actively taking time to sit in prayer, in meditation, in holding space for what's changing in the world, for chanting. It could mean that you need more alone time, but it's not until we really quiet everything down that we're going to be able to hear some of these messages. And let me tell you guys something. Things are going to get really loud, and it's getting loud intentionally, almost to test the collective to see how much faith they have. All right. So that Mercury is exceptionally important, in my opinion, at the time of the full moon. we've got Mercury combust. So Mercury is within 10 degrees of the sun. So it's like burning up, right? It's like great balls of fire. The mind's on fire. It's just picking up all of this stuff collectively. Pisces is like a sponge. So we're going to hear a lot right around the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th of the month. People are, oh, I'm having these crazy dreams. I don't know what's going on. It's like I'm having dreams about this and that, whatever, because everybody's going to start picking up on the fact that there's about to be a huge energy shift. When Mercury is combust, sometimes we can get overwhelmed, or there can be a sense of there being so much action that it's hard to obtain all of the information that is currently going on. As I film this, it's March 1st. And something that I just reading in the news, just all this talk about, you know, the United States putting out information or bits and pieces of information that they're claiming that COVID actually came from a like a lab situation, that somehow it escaped from a lab. So I'm curious about that, especially considering that Pisces does deal with foreign places, hidden places, secret places where there may be viruses. Neptune rules virus. And the squares to Mars makes me feel like it's just going to be an absolute shit show in the media in terms of how this is all being portrayed. And a lot of stuff is going to be really hard to decipher what is and is not true. So watch for just the mind being on fire and just so much information coming out that you're just like mind boggled, and know that a lot of this is going to go all the way clear to about the 14th, 15th of the month. Because we will see Mercury and the Sun and Neptune all meet at 25 degrees, square Mars. Okay, so this is going to be like a week or so of just being like, what the heck is going on? The moon is in opposition to Mercury. That's significant. I mean, it's basically saying we've got the rational kind of grounded emotions of Virgo that's just like, okay, this is not complicated, just do it this way. And then Mercury's like, wait, you want me to do what? It's like, it's not all there. You know, Mercury's got its head in the clouds, or it's busy kind of whispering and going back and forth and having conversations with like other things in the cosmos. And it's hard to really stay grounded and stay focused, right? It's hard for Mercury to do that and receive those messages. When Mercury is in opposition to the moon, sometimes it can be very challenging to emotionally relate to people, or people are trying to talk to us and we're just like, I need space. I don't want to answer the phone. I don't want to talk. I can't respond to this text message. I'm in my feelings, right? And so there can be a sense of people getting really overly emotional, which I do think is possible, as a result of not getting the response that they want, or not getting a response at all. Mercury in Pisces is like #1 for kind of ghosty aspects, and just being like, I fell asleep, I didn't see the call, or, you know, I put my phone on silent because I'm overwhelmed and I didn't want to check my voicemail, or, you know, people who are like, I lost my phone, I've been without a phone for a week, what's going on? These will be common things that we're gonna hear more about from this full moon. Mercury sextile the North Node. Once again, it's like saying, well, how can we focus more on what's going on in tuning into our higher selves and also our intuition, knowing that we're silently, subtly focusing on staying grounded and just getting back down to basics. North Node in Taurus, right? We have got the Sun in Pisces. That's also in a sextile to Uranus and Taurus. So lots of support coming in between Pisces and Taurus. Sun sextile Uranus is like, okay, we're pivoting, we're adjusting, like there can be some action in this area. And it's like, how do we respond to that? And Pisces can have a tendency to be like, this is overwhelming, I don't want to do that thing. You know, I'm just gonna like stay in my comfort zone. I'm gonna stay under the covers today. I'm not going anywhere. Jupiter is coming into conjunction with Chiron. We'll see this over the days to follow this full moon. Essentially, also very important because Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces. So if you want to get really specific, Jupiter is the dispositor of Mercury, Sun, and Neptune, where it's like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing, what I'm thinking about. And this is about invisible things that are affecting physical bodies. Frequencies. Right? Frequencies, vibes, stuff that's just being put out there. If you're in like the Pisces freak out zone, it is having an impact on individuals. This does represent information that is being withheld from individuals, considering it is literally right behind Jupiter and Chiron. Get ready for when the Sun and Mercury go into Aries, and a lot of people have information that they're just willing to share or they're putting out there. Right now, it's kind of like, well, can we trust that? I don't know. I have this hunch, but I don't want to say anything. So there's definitely a sense of people wanting to kind of keep to themselves. And I think that, you know, with some of the sextiles to Taurus, there's a lot of needing to check in with the body and being like, you know, does this resonate with me? Does this feel right? Does this not feel right? You know, I'm being told this thing, but something is off. So you're going to have to check in with yourself a little bit more. It is focusing on this need to be aware of the physical body, that there can be effects to our health physically and our energy levels, or things that are impacting us that we're not even aware of because we're just so used to just holding in all of these emotions and not saying anything. I think a lot of us are just kind of like, we've been in like survival mode. I did a video earlier this week where I was talking about the Jupiter Chiron Venus conjunction, and like how a lot of people's just adrenals are just shot. Thank you to those of you guys who left all kinds of recommendations. It was really awesome to see so many people chip in. Perhaps maybe this is going to be the beginning of starting to finally kind of address, you know, just how the pandemic has affected everybody collectively on a mental level. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like every time I go out, everybody is just like a zombie. People are just like they're not checked in. People are not all there. The way people are driving, people are disassociating, right? And so I'm hopeful that Saturn coming into Pisces is going to be finally addressing this. Whether you happen to be in your 50s or your 60s and you feel that you've just slowed down as a result of the last few years, or maybe you have young children who are having a difficult time socializing because they have spent the better part of the last 2.5 years cooped up. It's definitely something that we're going to be addressing with some of these transits. Just Mercury being within the Sun-Saturn midpoint, I think it's going to be like where people have just become accustomed to just being quiet, not asking questions, not saying anything, not speaking up for other people, not questioning any narratives out there, and that's just become normal. And I've said this before, and I've gotten slack on the video, and I'm just gonna continue to say this in the nicest way that I can. If you don't agree with what I'm saying, that's totally fine. You don't have to watch my videos. You also don't have to leave me nasty comments. But if you want to, you're more than welcome to, because that's your right. You're able to kind of share your 2 cents on the internet. I'm gonna keep doing that. And those of you guys who wanna listen to what I have to say, amazing. I'll keep talking on my soapbox. But I'm going to keep telling you guys that this is not normal. A lot of the things that are going to be coming out is going to be propaganda. We're going to see a lot of propaganda. We're going to see a lot of brainwashing. So be mindful of what you're consuming, literally and figuratively, okay? What you're watching, who you're around, what you're listening to, and if something does not align with you, reflect on it. It's that simple. Keep looking at the Jupiter-Chiron conjunction. It's encouraging people to step outside of these issues that they're having in regards to feeling like they have become an outsider, and be willing to do the work even if it means that they're going at it alone. And I do think a lot of individuals are going to unite as a result of this. We're going to see the finale of the Mars in Gemini square Neptune. It's not exact. It's not going to be exact until later into March, closer to around a week, but you're going to feel this. And it's important because there is just so much Pisces energy. And we know, we've seen this play out really since the fall of 2022. Mars and Gemini, action, drive, communication, media, movement, speech, in a square with Neptune. So we first have seen it materialize as shadow banning and more information that was being kept from coming out, and then eventually it kind of unraveled over the retrograde into a lot of significant Gemini placements coming back to social media platforms, a lot of new faces and new people who are also kind of taking over things. And now it's been the last 2.5 months all about disclosure. So get ready, grab your popcorn. There's definitely going to be some more stuff coming out. But like I said, we don't know what's true or false. And I'm going to keep saying that because until we come out of the squares, we're not really going to know, right? I'm waiting until Mercury comes into conjunction with Jupiter. I'm waiting till Mercury's on the North Node. I'm waiting for this stuff because I think that we need facts. And we do need to be hearing from people who are doctors and lawyers and scholars and professors, and these voices should not be silenced, because the only way that we're going to be able to prevent something like this in the world from happening again is if we do not have one single organized power telling us what definitively is fact or fiction. because having one narrative, one simple answer could potentially be fatal for everyone in the future. So we need to be hearing a difference of opinion. People need to be being given the right to put that information and their ideas out there for public debate. Mars is at the Moon Neptune midpoint, and this is why I was chuckling reading the Sabian Symbols, because I was like, here we go. Mars in Gemini is pretty feisty, and it's also a little shisty in the square to Neptune. I, for one, have I think it's materialized for me in a sense of whenever Mars has gotten really close to Neptune, it's been like, right when I think something is one way, it turns out to be another. And now that it's wrapping up, it's me kind of being like, kind of pissed off and being like, this is kind of screwed up that so many things have been manipulated and put out in this fashion. And I believe that we're going to see some people finally start to wake up, right? Pisces is about sleeping. Aries is about waking up. It's about rising, right? So as we start to see this square happen, I think there's going to be some people with the full moon that are going to go, where's the facts and the figures? And people are going to go, oh, I don't know, we'll get it to you. And we're going to realize like things that are being delayed or things that are being intentionally withheld or things that are vanishing. It's not a good sign. That's going to be your first red flag. But Mars being at the Moon Neptune midpoint. Okay, so we've got the moon here, and it's a full moon. Neptune is the opposition. Mars sits conjunct that midpoint. So it represents basically the hidden, subconscious, kind of mystical, magical, or just swept under the rug energy. And the moon represents our emotions, our intuition, and also what we're meant to be feeling. So when Mars comes into a square with two very sensitive planets, you know that it's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride. So when Mars is in this midpoint, it becomes aggravated or agitated by discordant psychic energy. Okay, so basically, we're getting hit from all angles. People are going to feel energetically slimed. They may be confused. I'm wondering if it's like things that are going on in the atmosphere, things that are going on vibrationally, that's meant to get people to like argue and get kind of combative. So you might notice that people are just, they don't know why. They're just angry driving, they're getting frustrated, they're going to be short with people and how they're communicating, especially locally, because Mars and Gemini is your local neighborhood. And we may just see an uptick of some of this stuff. So be mindful that that's going to be kind of coming through this particular full moon. Now, the other way that we look at it with Mars at this midpoint is that you may feel more sensitive or open or optimistic about relationships or romance. But we can also find that that oftentimes leads to a lot of emotional confusion, and then it creates more agitation and inner conflict. So it's like, this could be a great and a magical kind of connection, and this and that, we could have this thing. And then it's like, wait, that didn't happen. Very castles made of sand type of thing with the Moon, Mars, Neptune. One other one, we've got the North Node. The North Node here in Taurus. It's at the Sun, Mars midpoint. Sun, Mars, Sun, creativity, energy, vitality, joy. Mars, conflict, war, energy, battles. So here's the North Node. Exactly on it. Wanting one's long-range efforts to contribute to progress. Wanting to connect with people who can work towards meaningful goals. What is that North Node in Taurus, right? It's stability, security, food for everybody, resources for everybody, life, grounding, all of that good stuff. So I think that there can be a sense of people getting aggravated, being like, why can't people just just pitch in, just help, just get together, like, let's do it, instead of being like, that's not my problem. So I think a lot of people are going to be, through some agitated emotions, are going to possibly be pushed into action. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. So hence the volcano explosion, that's just like, okay, fine. We're finally going to have this, dramatic eruption that's pushing us to the point where we're realizing like we have to connect with other people and make a meaningful difference. We can't just be having conflict and feeling like we're kind of battling each other, because it's not going to get us anywhere, right? Okay, so themes that you want to watch for. And I don't care what, I mean, pick your adventure. Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, Willy Wonka, Mad Hatter World. Guys, things are gonna get strange and confusing and colorful for the next 2 weeks. It's gonna be like what the hell is going on? Because we have so many mutable squares, because we have planets at 29 degrees, because we're gonna have so many conjunctions to Neptune, that one of the best things that you can do is just breathe, okay? Don't trip out, because it can be like a bad trip when you're seeing a bunch of conjunctions to Neptune and oppositions and squares, because nothing is gonna make sense. I'm not saying don't take life seriously. I'm just saying, just take it easy, take a breath, don't get all worked up over things. Organized chaos, and that's something I like to say all the time, because I feel like that's my life. That's my life. It's like I can have stuff all over the counters and things here and there, but like I always know where something is. I don't know, maybe you're like that too. But this definitely feels like organized chaos, that there can definitely be a sense of things kind of blowing up or falling apart right now, but there is a method to the madness. And I think that what Pisces is reminding us is that we have to let it all fall apart. The Virgo moon is saying, hey, I want to make it better. I want to fix it. I want to clean it up. I want to put it back together. But now is not really the time. You guys want to do that? Save that for the next new moon in Aries. Let it all kind of wash away right now. And appreciate the fact that there is an order, right? That's what's so awesome about astrology. Everything's happening in its own kind of divine time. This is something that came up for me when I was meditating on it. I'm probably going to get some slack for it, but whatever. Something that my grandmother always used to say to me is like, you can't reason with crazy. Like, you just can't reason with crazy. And there is a fine line between being like psychic and crazy. I walk that line regularly, so I can make that joke. But I feel like you can't reason with crazy, and you can't argue with stupid. So there are going to be some situations where people are going to go, I know, and it's this and it's that. And if somebody wants to get into it with you and say the sky is green, I would be like, you betcha, have a great day. Because there are going to be some really Looney Tune people that are just going to start kind of freaking out and acting a little Mercury and Pisces. There is no need to get mixed up in that. Remember, like I said, the volcano, you want to stand back and let it do its thing, because that is that method of releasing all of that pressure. Getting involved in the squabbles or the online conflict and this, that, and the other, it's not going to help anything. It's only collectively going to create more chaos. So just try to keep that in mind. And what I love also about this is something that came up for me in meditation too. When logic fails, faith can serve purpose, right? And Virgo loves logic. It's just like, here's the facts and the figures and the pie graphs and the charts, and here's the slideshow. And Pisces is just like, fuck the slideshow. It's just like, we're just gonna roll with it. Like, there's a plan, it's fine. We're just gonna meditate on it, and we're just gonna wait for the call, right? And so it's as crazy as it sounds, if things do feel as a result of this full moon or the next week or two, like there is no logic in the world, that's really where faith steps in. And having a firm faith practice, meditation, maybe meditating for you is painting or going for a walk or, listening to a podcast or whatever it is that you do. Get into that. Do more of that, because that's going to help kind of channel the energies of staying connected to your higher self better. And it's also going to keep you grounded in faith and routine while things can feel a little destabilized. And when in doubt, meditate, sleep on it, right? Sleep on it. There's going to be some people who are going to be like, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, like literally right after the full moon. Because that moon is going to come into a square with Mars and it's going to oppose Neptune. And people are going to do some things and say some things that they are going to regret, or they are going to realize that they were reacting based off of the information that they had, but it may not have necessarily been what they thought. And about a week from now, you're going to feel pretty dumb by reacting to that. So just breathe, right? When in doubt, meditate, go to sleep. If you still feel the same way the next day, then consider having the conversation or making the decision. And please, everybody, consider your sources, because we're going to see lots of issues with that. Yes, Mercury and Saturn being in the same sign, we're going to hear more about this focus on, dismantling and getting rid of false information and fact checking. And there's going to be more of it. There's going to be higher levels of security. We're going to see it now going more into video and things that are being screened in video, not just audio, that are going to start getting flagged. And so I think that this is only the beginning And so what do we do, right? When we can't communicate, or we have to speak in code on a YouTube video, or we're feeling like we have to be going and using a separate app, so we're not, you know, on an open network sending text messages. I mean, to me, like, this is just all so bizarre that it's gotten to this point. But people can connect by meditating at the same time. People can connect in person by meeting and having a conversation, and not being through a messenger app, or not being through, you know, a online platform. We can do that, right? We can send smoke signals. I don't know. We'll find a way. But I think that this is about connecting and communicating in ways that's not always literal. Sometimes it's telepathic, right? So if you get that hit where you're like, I just keep thinking about this person, I'm going to call them, make sure they're okay, or stop by and check on them. These are the kinds of things that you want to be paying attention to. So ritual themes for you guys that I have, that I would recommend, because this is happening in an earth sign. Obviously crystals, plants, right? That can be helpful. If you want to be doing work with water, baths and chalices and washes. I like, for a Virgo full moon, I want to clean my house. That's what I want to do. I want to put a bunch of salt and lemon and Florida water and other things into hot soapy water and just like clean everything. But know that it's not just about cleaning everything, it's about cleansing and also purifying. So this can be a fun moon where, sure, if you want to put your crystals and your plants out and you want to do your self-care, like your yoga and your body work, you can. Obviously, Virgo appreciates, you know, healthy food and things that are going to be more natural, organic. But cleaning, cleansing, organizing, perfecting. But don't forget the spiritual side of it. Feng shui can be amazing, moving furniture around. Yeah, you can get the dust bunnies, but also don't forget to light the incense or reset the flowers or the water or things in your altar space, because we need to be able to incorporate spirit into our routine so we can have a better mind, body, spirit balance. Okay? All right, so let's take you guys now through the 12 signs. Oh, and before I do that, crystals that I would recommend, my favorite is moss agate. I like really using moss agate for Virgo energy. Green jade, citrine, and like smoky quartz. These are things that I think can be really helpful during the time of this moon, because there's going to be so much spacey energy with Pisces, and also that Mars square, that anything that's going to be connecting to Virgo can be really helpful. Okay. I'll take you guys through the 12 signs. As always, you guys know I'm a Western astrologer, okay? I'm gonna keep saying that because people always ask, what is this? Can I listen to this or that? I'm a Western astrologer. You can listen to your rising, your sun, and your moon sign. For my predictions, you're gonna get the most by listening to the rising sign. So listen to your rising sign, then your sun, then your moon. All may have a little bit of like magic that can be really helpful, but the ascendant sign is what's literally gonna be playing out, which area in your life. I'm going to be doing this using the whole sign method. If you are a Placidus user like me, then you're going to need to find where 16 degrees of Virgo is in your chart. If it's in an intercepted house, it's a blind spot. You can listen to 2 different rising signs. Or if you have any personal planets, sun, moon, rising, or any personal planets at 16 degrees of Virgo, this is very significant and very personal for you. Yeah, it's literally, it looks like within an hour of the full moon, Saturn goes into Pisces. Like, you just can't like make this stuff up. It's gonna get so weird. Okay, so I'm gonna work with the after tarot today because I think everybody's gonna want to know what's gonna happen after this full moon. So I was like, that seems perfect. We'll just do that. And we're going to start with Aries and Aries rising. What's up, Aries? A lot of the stuff that I was saying always applies to you. So you get the sermon long before everybody else does. You got a full moon taking place in your 6th house, okay? The ruler is in the 12th. So you really have to find that balance between the physical body, daily routines, habits, and health, and the spiritual body, sleep, subconscious, and hidden worlds, okay? Please, 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 please be mindful when you are driving, okay? That Mars square, do not underestimate it. That's your chart ruler. It is possible that due to weather or something that you don't see, there is something that you overlook while driving or while in, in transit. Equally, this can mean that you rush to finish something or send off an email or you say something, or, something can be going on here. Health, obviously, right? A full moon in your 6th house can always bring a focus or an emphasis on health. So a full moon in the 6th house can mean you get results back in regards to testing, Maybe you complete a job and now you're moving to a new office space. Maybe it's time to, kind of do that to-do list and get some stuff worked out. You and Libra are both the signs that are more predisposed to having health-related issues from this full moon because it'll be on your 6th or your 12th house axis. So I do want you to pay attention. You're preparing and getting ready for your birthday soon. You got a whole ton of planets in your 12th house. It tells me that it's more about rest, recuperation. You might be feeling a little under the weather. You might be feeling a little blue. But with that full moon happening in your 6th house with a trine to Uranus, I do feel like there's opportunities to make changes to your everyday routines or your habits so that way you're feeling like you're in better balance. If you've been working really hard on your health and your fitness, you may start to really see the full results of that happening in your 6th house. And I do feel like that the results are not just purely physical, it can also be mental or emotional as well, okay? Pay attention to, don't be rushing through things. That's the best advice I can give you, because that Mars square, with that being your chart ruler, makes me feel inclined to tell you there can be something that you overlook or that you don't see, okay? So let's see what the tarot says for you, Aries. Ooh, I like it. This is the Empress card. So this is the after tarot. So this is going to show you what's going to happen after. So this is obviously a card that talks about like motherhood. It talks about nourishment. It talks about health and vitality and beauty and love. And this is about mothers, okay? This can also be about women. So if you happen to identify as the Empress, it's focusing on like nurturing and taking care of yourself. And what's cool with this is that you see she's had the baby, and there's a swan and a bunch of like little baby geese that are kind of hanging out next to the swan. So it does represent like that physical birth process. Well, Jupiter's on your ascendant. There's eclipses that are happening on your ascendant. It's not unusual for there to be things that are coming up where somebody's saying, I'm, trying to get healthier because I'm focusing on pregnancy, or I'm starting a new job, or I'm really focusing on being able to kind of clean up some of my health habits so that way I'm feeling like I can be productive. And just, it's about self-care. It's about self-care. And I think that that's really important when you're looking at this 6th and 12th house axis. Help may come from a woman. This might also be health relating to mother figures. I mean, the moon's in your 6th. It can also be reproductive stuff or things relating to the breasts, okay? This is generally an omen of positive health though, so I'm not worried about that. Good luck. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. What's going on, Taurus? You're going to be having a full moon in your natal 5th house in a fellow sister sign, Virgo. So Taurus, having a full moon in your 5th house, this is all about romance, joy, creativity, a completion of something, a completion of a project. So something that's coming full circle. So if you're self-employed, that's the 5th house. If you're involved in speculative investments, that can be like the stock market, things like that, you might see a positive upward swing. The 5th house does deal with romance, so there can be a sense of falling in love, meeting somebody, going on like a really romantic date. But the 5th house also deals with children, so this can also be a precursor for you, Taurus, for children. Usually an eclipse, a Jupiter transit, a full moon, these can all be indications of pregnancy that's coming in. That full moon there, Jupiter's heading for your ascendant, and there are still going to be eclipses here in the fall. Maybe it's that you're focusing just more on having fun, on experiencing joy, going and doing things that is going to feel more so creatively fulfilling or rewarding. The chart ruler, or the full moon ruler, Mercury, is in the 11th. So it does talk about having fun and being creative and being part of a group or a collective. So if you notice, for all of the signs, Saturn is just moving into Pisces. So it's really kind of sealing the deal, and it's saying, okay, Taurus, you need to focus more on your relationships with groups and some kind of an affiliation, whether it's just being more active and going out with your friends, maybe it's joining a new collective or a new group. and your ability to really showcase some of your own creative projects while you are a part of a collective with other people. Pisces can be artists, you know, this can be about visual design, this can be people who are more spiritual or bohemian, right? And I love that all this Pisces energy sextiles your ascendant, and then the moon is also trining Uranus in your first house. So this is about taking the lead in regards to using that Uranian energy to be more self-expressive, right? And perhaps even being a little bit more creative or playful with your appearance. So watch for all of these topics. Let's see what the cards say for you, Taurus. The sun, I like it. We're on a good streak so far. Fingers crossed, guys. Children, happipiness, joy, time in the sun, recognition, things kind of going your way after what's been a more challenging period. Enjoy it. Enjoy this moon. Take a breath right before you see Pluto go into your 10th house and you realize that there's some huge shifts that are coming for you in terms of your career and your responsibility out in the world. But it's your time in the sun, and I feel like this is about receiving recognition and appreciation from other people for all of the hard work that you've been doing. Good luck. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising. What's going on, Gems? You're going to see a full moon in Virgo, and this is going to be in your natal 4th house. You and all the mutable signs, I guess I should have said that, but I'll say this now. You and all of the mutable signs, especially if you're a sun, moon, rising, mutable, anywhere between, let's say, like 14 and 18 degrees, okay? 14 and 18 degrees. You guys are going to feel this the most. So if you're a Gemini rising within those degrees, you're going to feel a square. There can be some pressure. Having a full moon in angular houses and Mars is in your sign. Let's just say a little prayer here for Gemini. Just watch, keep your cool. A full moon in the 4th house is about home, family, health, or organization. So it can go a couple different ways. So the 4th house full moon can be something happens with a relative, you close on a house, you decide that you're going to relocate, somebody in the family needs you to help them with like a home, you know, project, something like that's going to happen. The 4th house is your home and private space, okay? It can also involve one of the parents, so I would watch for that as well. If you live alone, definitely watch for what's going on with relatives. If you have roommates, it can actually involve roommates. Now, the full moon is going to be in opposition to Mercury, which is your chart ruler, okay? It's your chart ruler, so that being in the 10th house represents, look at all this responsibility that I have. Saturn will be moving there shortly. Mercury, Sun, and Neptune. So responsibility for what? Work, career, right? If you happen to help take care of a parent, if you are launching a business, if you're responsible for a team, perhaps there's something going on in the family and now it's time for you to go back to work. This is the case for a lot of people. I've seen a lot of Gemini risings who haven't worked in years and suddenly they have to go back to work. It's pushing you out of the house, into the public sphere. And with that opposition to your Mercury, your ruler, it does seem to be some stress about resources and money within the home because the moon rules your 2nd house of resources. The truth is that you're having also Earth trine in what is traditionally water houses. So there can be a sense of you getting emotional about physical changes. You're reacting more so emotionally. The moon's at home in the 4th house. You may feel like you just want to be kind of like in hermit mode and you're staying in and you're focusing on, you know, what you can get done around the home. I feel like there can be opportunities to purchase property or be looking at investing in property or just putting money into an existing home. But with the moon in opposition to the sun and also Mercury, it feels like there can be like a little bit of like a meeting of the minds in terms of where the money should go, what the budget should be, you know, what color we paint a room, like who's going to be the one to manage it. And if parents or other relatives are involved, there's going to be a difference of opinion. Now, I spoke a lot about the Mars and Gemini in the square and how that was going to be, I think, the focal point of the volcano. Honestly, that's going to push the volcano. And Mars is in your sign and it's awake now. Okay, so there is a sense of impulsiveness. You can act a little rash. It is in a square with the Sun and Neptune, which means you kind of being like, oh my God, what am I going to do? It's all on me. Like, this is my responsibility. Ah! And it can just kind of, you know, it can really create a dynamic within the home or the family that is really stressful. So just be mindful of your energy, have an outlet, right? You got all this great energy in Aries here in the 11th house. Find support from friends. That's my advice. Or, you know, make peace with the fact that you do need a little bit more private time, alone time out in nature to kind of decompress. And let's see what the cards have to say. And obviously, one other thing, the axis between the 10th and the 4th house is the home responsibility and the private emotional inner world versus what's going on out in the world. And you're feeling the pressure of having to go out and do things out in the world and be responsible. And it can feel a little overwhelming and that you're getting pulled in both directions when it comes to home as well as career, okay? Take a deep breath. By mid-March, things get a little bit easier. Oh, I love this. You have 2 cups. You know, the one area of the chart that is not highlighted is Sag. That's the missing piece to the mutable T-square. 2 of Cups is about relationships. This is about harmony and support that comes from other people. This can talk about a partner showing up and being there if you're in need. This can talk about a friend showing up and being there if you're in need. That's why I said really lean on what's going on with the sextiles between Aries and your ascendant. Friends, groups, organizations, you know, who are saying, hey, let me help support you. What can we do to help you? It's going to help break down some of that tension. And Jupiter does rule relationships. So this is about relationships that you have with other people who can kind of support you while you're going through some of this tension in regards to changes with either your career or your home. Partners will be there to support you. People are going to be there to help you. All you have to do is just accept the offer, okay? Even if it's your family. Even if it's your family. It doesn't always have to be a friend or a partner. It can be a relative as well. Good luck, Gemini. What's up, Cancer? You got Cancer and Cancer rising. We're going to have a full moon in Virgo taking place in your natal 3rd house, which is all about communication, siblings, cars, short distance trips, education, gadgets, right? And full moons are important because you're ruled by the moon. Virgo does sextile your ascendant if you're a Cancer rising, so it is supportive in that sense. And a full moon in the 3rd, 9th house axis. This is saying you're busy. You know, you're running around, there's something going on with a car or maybe even with a sibling. Some of you guys are anticipating or maybe thinking about moving. There could be much more action in the neighborhood. The challenge is that the moon is in a square with Mars, so it does make me feel like there is some tension that's going on in regards to making some decisions about your career behind the scenes, and you're like, I'm stressed out, I'm not ready to kind of get the show on the road work-wise. And now I'm experiencing a lot of just busy work in my day-to-day. Phone calls, documents, running around errands, that kind of stuff. Being that the moon is going to be in opposition to Mercury, that does tell me that you may be starting to question, like, what is life? What am I doing here? What is my belief system? Like, where am I going? Here comes Saturn into your 9th house. So for some of you guys, it's, I need to get, you know, my license renewed. I need to get documents handled. I need to go and get my computer fixed. And also like trying to make sense of what's going on with a situation, because the 3rd house is the lower mind, the 9th house is the higher mind. Now, if you need documents to go back to school, travel, if there's law documents or legal things that you need to sign, that can come up with that opposition to the 9th house. For many Cancer risings, even though all of this energy is very supportive of your ascendant, there can be, with Saturn moving into your 9th house, a sense of being like, do I need to go back to school? Do I need to go back to church? Like, what is the meaning of life? There can be some kind of either philosophy, like type opportunity where you start working with like a mentor who changes your perspective on life. Maybe you decide that you want to go back to school. Maybe you do have to go and talk to a lawyer or somebody who's going to kind of help you work through some like documents. Something like that can happen. With the squares to Mars, I feel like there is a sense of feeling disempowered. And I'm just telling you that so you're aware of it. I know you're sick of the Mars squares and you feel like you've been in rest and recuperation and hiding out mode for some time. It's going to pass. But now is not the time to hide out. Now is the time to get really firm in your belief system and also what you know, so you're prepared for all of the goodness that's coming for your career, because this is all going to be from April on. It's like getting ready for being the captain of the ship and launching businesses, showing up, you know, being a manager, being big out in the world, like being seen. As soon as Mars goes into your sign, it's like it's on like Donkey Kong. You're gonna have to start getting moving. So if you know that you need to go back to school and get new skills, if you know that you need to file a document or get something ready for court, or that you need to go and get some kind of renewal of something involving a vehicle, do it. Don't delay. That's my advice. Do not delay. Okay? And when in doubt, communicate and be open to other people who can give you guidance or perspective right now. It could be a therapist, it could be a mentor, it could be getting a reading. Somebody who's just going to be like, you know what, this is the bigger picture and this is really what you have to do to kind of get things in order. See what the cards say for you, Cancer. Ooh, the Lovers. This does talk about options and choices and what direction ultimately you're going to go in and whether or not you take the bait. I don't really see this as being like a romantic thing. I mean, sure, I guess it could be if you're like going on a trip somewhere and you want to get away from it all. Sure, okay, that could happen when you're having a full moon on this axis. But I think this is just more of like, how deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go? How much do you want to learn? How much do you want to find out? And whether or not you're willing to, like I said, take the bait. I always think of that when I see the Lovers card, because there is this temptation with the fruit of, do you want to really know the secrets of the universe? So great when Saturn's going into Pisces, like learning more about esoteric topics, learning more about psychology, meditation, past life regression, astrology. I mean, there is a sense of wanting to go deeper with some of your belief systems. And will you do that? Will you decide to go and find the right teachers or mentors or programs to help you kind of achieve that? We'll see. All right, so good luck, Cancer. We have now got Leo and Leo rising. And you will be having a full moon in Virgo taking place in your natal second house of money and finances, resources. So when you have a full moon in the second house, this does represent something significant in regards to your spending. So it can include making a large purchase. It can mean that there is suddenly an unexpected bill that comes up. It can mean that something comes to you that is owed to you from someone else. This is a bit complex because it is on the 2nd and the 8th house axis. So this represents your money and this is others. Saturn will just move in there. So for some Leo and Leo risings, it's going to be like, okay, I'm getting an inheritance, or I'm getting a big tax refund, or I'm going to be getting something, you know, that's owed to me from my employer. However, Mercury is in opposition to this moon. So it's basically saying, like, you may have to go after it. You may have to inquire. You may have to ask, when can I withdraw it? When am I getting it back? When do I get the refund? How do I file the document? This is like big energy in relation to filing taxes with Mercury in opposition to the moon, big time. Being that Saturn's leading the pack, some of you guys might be surprised to find out you're not getting as much as you thought. And I don't like saying that, but it's true, or you might realize it's going to take money to make money. If you've been waiting on a loan, or even like a debt consolidation, or if you've been, you know, delaying having to make payments, you might find that payments have to be due. On the flip side, I think the moon in a trine to Uranus is saying that there's solutions, that perhaps some of the money that's going in is just as a result of, you know, needing to make more money, investing in business, investing in yourself. I wonder if this is going to involve documents pertaining to health and changes in health insurance, or changes with a partner or a spouse's resources, which may impact your guys' joint spending or your insurance in general. You'll have to let me know, Leo, because I know that Pisces naturally quincunx or inconjunct your ascendant. And a lot of you guys with all these planets going into your 8th house are going to have to start talking about credit scores, joint banking accounts, wills, inheritance, estate stuff. Like that's going to be a theme for you guys over the next few years with so much outer planet action in your 8th house. Okay. I like the trine to the 10th. I do feel like that the positive things that are happening in regards to resources can be that you're just asking for more, expecting more. You want more bonuses. You want more of an incentive to show up and keep grinding it out at work. Oh, well, that card jumped out. We have the Four of Wands, which is a positive card. This is a card that does talk about unions, celebratory things, togetherness, temporary spaces and places. So if there is like a financial crunch, it's not going to last for very long. I also wonder with Saturn going into your 8th and Pluto going into your 7th, if this is going to be challenges in regards to joint resources because of other people, and maybe you're having to spend on something. Some Leos and Leo risings are, okay, I'm getting married now we're spending more money, we got to watch the budget. This is the card that deals with weddings. So if you know that you're going to be going to a wedding, maybe you're traveling more, maybe you're planning an event or something, money might feel a little bit tighter, but it's saying it's just temporary. And that even in spite of a more difficult energy, there's a lot to celebrate with what's going on right now. Sometimes when you see planets go into the 8th house, others' loss is your gain, right? So there can be a sense of being like, okay, well, you know, somebody quit and now I've got their position and now I'm getting paid more. So there is something to celebrate in regards to what's coming in. I'm hoping that the full moon in the 2nd house is literally going to be about you guys getting a big payout, but I'm realistic with the oppositions to Saturn that there can be some catches, right? And those catches can actually be paying taxes or having to give somebody else a cut. Let me know. Good luck, Leo. Virgo and Virgo rising, this is your party. How's it going, Virgo? As I said with the other mutable signs, hold on to your shorts. It gets a little prickly, okay? Not as prickly as Sag, even though it's in your sign. A full moon in your 1st house. What does that do? Well, this is all about completion of something in regards to you personally, your body, your image, okay? So it can be a grand reveal. It is possible. The moon rules your 11th house of goals and friends and anything in regards to celebrations. And the full moon is happening on the axis of the 1st and the 7th house, which means you and then other people. There's a lot of energy in your 7th house right now. Saturn's showing up, so it's time to get real sobering reality, real sobering facts. Mercury, Saturn in the 7th. Decisions about relationships. You might feel like people are just being like brutally honest with you. You know, where Mercury goes is symbolic of you. So I'm wondering if Mercury's conjunction recently to Saturn is like, I do or I do not love you. I will or I will not participate in this relationship. I do or do not want to, you know, have a life with you or marry you, or I am in love with you, right? Saturn rules your 5th house, or I do want to have kids. There's really important conversations going on right now. And I encourage you to show up for those conversations. Don't skate by. Those of you guys who are not in relationships, it's a time to really reevaluate what your goals are in life, what you're doing, where you're going. You got Mars in the 10th house, so there's been a lot of back and forth with career stuff in recent months, which has also been in disharmony with Neptune. So if you're working your life away, you're like, how am I ever going to meet anyone, right? Or how am I going to create a life where I can have a space for another person? This brings up a lot of those same themes for me. The moon in your 1st house in opposition to the sun is basically saying there's something completing about you that's being shown through relationships with others. And so the 7th house can be clients, it can be business partners, but it can be spouses, boyfriends, girlfriends, romantic partners, or your marketplace. And so I would say watch out, because there can be some sense of frustration, especially at work, in regards to getting along with other people and making sure that there's a lot of clarity. And you might feel like there hasn't been a lot of clarity and like people are not as reliable, and you're having to have sit-down conversations with them about that. I feel like the day or two to follow really needs to be watched. I mean, really for the next week. I hate to say that, but when Mercury and Saturn, when Mercury, Sun, and Neptune all come together and square Mars, If someone ghosts you, whether it's a potential employer, a romantic partner, a client, whatever, really watch for that, because likely no communication means leave it alone. Like there may be a sense of being like, this is dead in the water. I can't do this anymore, and you really have to let it go. I hate to say that, but that may actually happen. Saturn being on an angle and in your opposite sign is going to speak volumes in terms of who's meant to kind of exit your life and what relationships are worth rolling up your sleeves and doing the heavy lifting, right? But the full moon is in your sign. So you're gonna get a lot of feedback, I think, from other people in regards to whether or not you're ready. And people may show you some of your blind spots, right? You might get some really interesting feedback from a client, or maybe even from a therapist, or maybe even in a reading where somebody's like, hey, like, are you really ready for some of the things that you're saying you're ready for? And I would say be ready for some of that energy. You might be much more emotional than usual as well. That's something else that I have a feeling is going to happen. I think you might be quite emotional. Let's see what the cards say for you, Virgo. Two of Swords. It's indecisive, as is that Mercury in Pisces. It's changeable, it's mutable, right? And so you may not feel like you're speaking the same language. There can be a sense of going back and forth and, feeling kind of stressed about making a decision. I'll tell you that it's not going to take long for you to sit with this before you're going to be pushed to have to make a decision. And you may feel stressed out about having a conversation with somebody, or, kind of speaking what's on your mind. But I would say do it anyway and let the dust settle, and whatever happens, happens. After that point, you're likely going to feel like either you or a partner need space within the next week anyway, and then see what happens after that. But Two of Swords does make me feel like you have to pick a lane. It's this or it's that. And it may be moving on from a relationship. It may also be that you're realizing that somebody else is telling you, hey, I don't think you're ready, right? So try not to take it too much to heart. And let me know what happens. That can be a stressful card. We've got Libra and Libra rising. What's up, Libra? We got a full moon in Virgo, in your natal 12th house if you're a Libra rising. Subconscious, hidden, your bedroom, your sleep zone. Maybe it's just me. I will say this as a Libra rising. Let me know your opinion. I feel like this is when all the bad habits come out. You guys feel like that? Not a lot of people realize, like, Virgo in the 12th house for Libra rising is like a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, and sometimes that manifests as like not taking care of health, or not sleeping well, or partying, or having some destructive tendencies that are not positive at all. So when you see a full moon similar to Aries that's highlighting the 12th and the 6th house, you are more predisposed to get sick. Okay, Libra, really hear me on this, especially if you are a Libra rising within the first 5 degrees or so. Saturn is in conjunct or quincunx your ascendant. You don't want to mess around with that. It makes me feel as if there is a need to really focus on bringing a little bit more either emotional or spiritual balance in your everyday life. Okay, we want magic in your everyday life, even if it's folding laundry, even if it's just walking the dog, doing whatever. Like, you need these little rituals with all of this Pisces in your 6th house. When you have the full moon in your 12th, there can be sudden dramatic conclusions and things that you did not see coming, because the 12th house is usually out of the blue. It will be in opposition to your 12th house lord, as well as your 9th house lord. So it tells me that there can be a change in your schedule suddenly. You may be feeling under the weather. You might be kind of bugging out a little bit, and it's disrupting your daily routine. If you have pets, I would pay close attention to pets. There can also be some drama with some coworkers. There can be some gossipy things going on with people that you work with in the office space. There can also be a sense of feeling like you're just really run down and under the weather. All of this in a square to Mars does kind of manifest also as challenges in adapting to just constant school, constant travel, back and forth with travel plans, things that are just making you feel run down and a little exhausted, okay? Now is the time with Saturn moving into your 6th house, because Saturn rules your 4th and your 5th, that you're having more structure to when you're working, when you're home, better boundaries between your private life and your work life. And I would say, you know, rituals or self routines that include water, right? Or rest. You're going to need more of that. I was listening to a podcast the other day, which I thought was really interesting, something I didn't know. I was listening to a doctor talk about how women need more sleep than men, which I feel like I'm always saying, but I don't feel like men believe that. Women rely more on their hormones to be able to kind of, you know, develop or generate energy to get through the day. Men don't really work like that. So whether it's like their calorie intake or like what, I don't know how it works, but he was basically saying because we're more reliant on our hormones to like regulate our energy levels, women on average need 8 to 10 hours of sleep per night, while men can get by, I'm not saying you should, but with like 6 or 7. But women generally need, you know, 2 or 3 hours more, which is wild. And as a Libra rising, I've been feeling that. I'm like, wow, I need more sleep. You know, I'm getting up early, but I'm wanting to go to bed earlier. So you may notice that there's just more of a need for rest and recuperation. Also being out in nature, being in private health spas, health-related things can come up, whether it's for you or your furry friends. So I would just keep an eye out for that. Let's see what the cards say for you, Libra. Oh, 2 of Cups again. It's going to be one of those videos. 2 of Cups, support from other people. You know, Saturn and Mercury hanging out in your 6th house makes me feel like you can find some amazing health practitioners. If you're looking for herbalists, if you're looking for massage therapists, if you're looking for, you know, people who do acupuncture, who do, I mean, anything. I mean, Pisces is more spa, spiritual kind of like, that can kind of help you deal with some of these things. You'll have support from another person. You have a ton of planets in your 6th house, which is 12th to your 7th, which is generally not the easiest energy for your relationships. But I feel like with Venus and Jupiter in your 7th, and the eclipse is moving into your 7th, it's saying that, you know, if you're going through a difficult time, whether it's emotionally, mentally, or with your health, or just feeling like you're needing to get your act together, Saturn in the 6th can be sobriety. It is saying that there is a sense of people who want to help and want to help you rebound and bounce back and feel better, okay? Good luck, Libra. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. What's going on, Scorpio? You're going to be having a full moon in Virgo. Very exciting. Full moon moving into your natal 11th house. Right here. And Virgo naturally sextiles Scorpio, so it's going to funnel positive energy into change and transformation. Full moon in the 11th house brings parties, celebrations, opportunities to get together with friends, groups, and also just achieving goals. Okay, so this is goals for you. It might mean that, you know, you reach a goal that you've been working towards in regards to a creative project. It may mean that you get invited to a party and you have a good time. I'm looking at the oppositions between the moon and your 5th house. Moon in opposition to Mercury makes me feel like there is a sense of you wanting to connect to younger, creative, like-minded people. It may mean that there is a sense of you connecting with people who are in different places, different time zones, needing to kind of connect with them and collaborate in some way. It can be challenging, right? The moon rules foreign places and education. So maybe it can talk about like creative groups and stuff where you're learning from each other. But overall, the 11th and the 5th house are actually really positive houses. This is about goals, and this is about joy and creativity and expression, self-expression, right? The 5th house is putting your heart and soul into something. And that's so true with Pisces being in the 5th house for you. Saturn has, you know, it's just now entering into your 5th house. So congratulations, you did it. All the fixed signs, you guys have moved through Saturn being in Aquarius. It's been very difficult. Now you have Saturn in a sign that is more friendly with your sun, moon, or rising. Saturn moving into the 5th house for a lot of Scorpio and Scorpio risings will materialize as becoming self-employed, identifying as an artist, focusing more on creativity, self-expression, developing some of your spiritual or creative skills, and perhaps even the birth of your first child. Now, if you already have a kid, then it can represent the relationship you have with your children or even with a romantic or a creative partner. Between a full moon that's in the 11th house and Mercury and the Sun and Neptune being in the 5th house, you're focusing on creating something, whether it's a relationship or a project or a child. That definitely is a theme here. I'm looking at the trines to your ascendant. If you're a Scorpio rising, I'm looking at the sextiles to your 7th house, and I feel like younger people, creative people, children, or creative projects are lending a lot of energy into helping you change. And maybe you're realizing that your goals are changing, that it's great to be with other people, but you want to work on what you want to work on, right? This is a huge focus on what's going to make me happy. So you're focusing on hobbies, or you're focusing on relationships, or things that are going to make you feel more fulfilled. And it definitely does come from support of others, but I feel like it's much more romantic because of the sextiles to your 7th house. So it's, what do you do to create more fun, create more romance with a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, romantic partner, and feeling like you don't need to go and be with other people, that you can actually do it with yourself, or do it with your significant other. If you don't have one, just wait until the spring. You'll see when Jupiter gets into your 7th house and it starts sextiling all of this, that it's bringing opportunity to meet someone special. You can get set up with someone. That's the other way that I look at it. You know, the moon in the 11th house is you go to a party and you're hanging out and a friend goes, I want you to meet this person, and you meet them, right? Because we have sextiles here. We have sextiles between the Sun and Uranus. It could be great for networking and meeting new clients as well. It doesn't all have to be about relationships, but I definitely think that is a theme for you. Let's see what the cards say for you, my Scorpios. I get the Queen of Pentacles. It's a great card. Money, resources, stability, health, abundance, physically having something, which is so cool because this seems to be a theme, actually. You got the moon in an earth sign. So Virgo, Capricorn, or Taurus may come into your life and they may support you in some way. It can be a woman, or it can just talk about you really getting a hold of what it is that you want to physically create and what you value the most. The 2nd, 5th, 8th, and 11th houses are all financial. So when I look at the full moon in the 11th house of others, in the 5th house of your creativity, it's squaring Mars. So there's this sense of being like, what am I putting out there and what am I getting back? You know, am I making a good investment of my time? Like, am I supposed to be helping other people, or am I supposed to be building my own thing? And like, where is the exchange? And I think you guys have been thinking about that a lot with the Mars square, in terms of whether or not it's a decent payoff, or if it's just an even exchange. So you may find that somebody gives you some keen insight as to where to better apply your energy and your time to make the most of it. Okay. Good luck, Scorpio. We've got Sag, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Welcome to a very action-oriented full moon in Virgo. Sagittarius, you're the one on the hot seat because you're the one who's making the grand mutable square, especially if you're like a Sag with planets in the 1st house. Oh, you're going to be like, what the hell is going on? Here's the good news, okay? Because there is good news. You have a full moon in your 10th house. So it's time to like boss up. Right? There could be a grand opening of something. There can be a sense of you quitting jobs, launching jobs, taking new positions, hiring somebody for your business. Like, the list goes on. Like, there is big things happening in the work realm right now. So a full moon is really used for, you know, a focus on presentations. If you have to give presentations to bosses, or if there's like a huge project that's due. This is also going to be about really, I think, reevaluating your place at work and what you're valuing. I think some of you guys are thinking about upping your prices a little bit. I could definitely see that happening with Mars getting ready to go into your 8th house soon. This full moon is in opposition to Mercury and the Sun in Pisces, and you're going to have a Pisces party in your 4th house, which is, I'm just going to tell you right now, I have natal Neptune and Saturn in the 4th. I know how this goes. Watch for water issues in your house, okay? Weird stuff happens with houses with these two placements. One is, if there is a water leak, if there is water damage, you need to take it seriously, because there could be all kinds of problems, which could be very costly, and it could be like mold. The other reason why I'm telling you this is that Saturn represents limitation and Neptune is like no bounds. So you may need better bounds and boundaries, with your home or with your family. It may also mean that you need to be mindful of your emotions, because what I've noticed with this natally is if you're not processing your emotions, then a pipe bursts, or there's some kind of something all over the floor, or something going on with water in your home. And I really think that with this. Okay, so whether it's waterworks or something going on with like a dishwasher, you've been warned. Full moon on the axis of the 10th and the 4th brings the attention to, okay, this is what I got to go do out in the world. I got to complete this thing because I got to get back home. I got to get back home to mom. I need to focus on my kids. You know, I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to live, or I'm just feeling a little blue. Pisces is the temple. Okay, so I think of like all these planets in your 4th house. When you come home from work, if you're not working at home, when you come home from work, do you have like a Zen zone, right? Do you have a corner that you can curl up and read a book or meditate and or take a nap, right? Do you have a place where you can burn some incense and you can put some of your crystals out? Or, you know, how can you better deck out your bathroom or your kitchen and make it feel like a little bit more vibey? These are things I would recommend. Saturn in the 4th does feel heavier when it comes to moods. It is challenging because it's also opposing this full moon and it's squaring all of your angles. So welcome to the welcoming party of Saturn in your 4th house. There is a sense of feeling like, where is home? Get your work done, bring it back home, ground out your energy. If you need to go home and visit family, if you need to stay with mom, if you're moving back home, if you need to take care of an elderly relative, these things can all happen. And you may feel like the time revolving around the full moon, it's just very overwhelming, because if you have Sag in the 1st house, it's going to square all of this stuff. Now, Mars in the 7th is the focal point for some of the stuff that's going on at home. So it can mean that you have partners that are incentivizing you and being like, let's go. You got to keep it moving. You can't just sit around and watch Netflix in the same sweats all day and cry and watch Nicholas Spark movies. Like, you need to get out. So you may have siblings, neighbors, romantic partners that are like, you need to get out of the house. And I know all you're going to want to do is rest. So I'm going to say, just get your work done, focus on creating that space at home. You know, Saturn through the 4th house is going to be 2.5 years. So it's going to take time to figure out, where do I want to live? What feels like home? How am I saving money for resources? Do I sell something? Is my family going to be okay? There's just going to be a lot going on. So it's going to feel like a little bit of pressure right now. My advice for you is just, you know, give the presentation, show up and be a star, but do not overwork yourself or over participate in things out in the world because you're trying to avoid or escape dealing with emotions or the reality of a situation with your home or your family. And Jupiter's in your 5th and Venus is in your 5th. So it wants you to focus on, what can you create? How can you have fun? What are hobbies and things you can do while you're at home? Maybe with children. I've seen so many Sag risings be like, I'm pregnant. I'm like, of course you are, with Jupiter in your 5th house and eclipses coming. Oh, look at that. Queen of Wands. That's you. So Queen of Wands is a fire sign woman, or it represents like the feminine archetype. That's kind of feisty. Getting moving, right? I mean, thankfully, you know, there is Jupiter in your 5th house, and there's aspects either to your sun, moon, or rising. So you need sunlight, you need heat, you need warmth, you need life, creativity, you need fun to kind of pick yourself up a little bit. I think this is also about letting your intuition be your guide. I love this card coming up for you because it does say that you're going to keep things moving and you're going to focus on not allowing yourself to get stagnant. Also, don't underestimate the sextiles between your 4th and your 6th, okay? This is saying that if you really focus on taking better care of the home or the emotions, that it can incentivize you to create new schedules or change things and kind of feel like you're creating a schedule that works around your life rather than the other way around, all right? Good luck, Sag. I hope it's a good one for you. Capricorn and Cap rising, what's going on? We got a bunch of planets in Pisces. We got a full moon in Virgo. That is in a sister sign. It's at 16 degrees. It's moved around a little bit, so don't mind me. But the moon is going to probably be trining your sun, moon, or rising if you're between, let's say, 14 and 18 degrees. You're going to benefit because there's going to be lots of yummy energy between this full moon and also Uranus. So there's lots of physical action taking place that honestly looks exciting. A full moon taking place in your 9th house is wonderful for changes of beliefs, travel, completing legal or educational pursuits, or even publishing. The moon does rule the 7th house, so I'm wondering, like, are you signing an agreement with a lawyer? Did you find somebody to kind of help publish a book? Do you speak with a counselor about making changes in your education plan? Are you going on a trip with a partner, right? Any of these things are possible. This can also be wonderful for ceremonies. This can be an omen of marriage or proposals, or going away and celebrating unions with other people. Mercury will be in opposition during the time of this full moon, which makes me feel like there can be some scheduling issues, there can be some travel delays, there can be some problems with vehicles, with gadgets, and missing documents. That can also happen. Tons of planets in your 3rd house. Your chart ruler is just moving into Pisces. I do feel like this is really encouraging you to really be tuned into your intuition. Many of you guys would really benefit from learning about meditation, maybe learning a form of divination, something that's going to help you kind of work through the everyday kind of questions and feel a little bit more comfortable with having Saturn in this sign. Now, there will be oppositions, obviously, as every full moon, but there will also be a square to Mars. And so this is where I feel like there can be, unfortunately for some of you guys, like legal issues with neighbors, with family, with siblings, things in regards to responsibility, because that Mars in the 6th house, it wants to get work done, but it's agitated. And I feel like you may not be on the same page. Like, you're speaking a completely different language than somebody who you're going back and forth with. There can also be a lot of back and forth communication with people in foreign places or educational centers. And for the most part, because it will be a moon that has positive aspects to your 5th and also your ascendant, it's just kind of like staying grounded through this, not allowing yourself to become ungrounded. There is a sense of, with Saturn and all these planets in the 3rd house, being like, okay, I need to go back to basics. I need to review something. So some of you guys might be reconnecting to something that you've studied in the past. Perhaps maybe you're realizing I have to move. Saturn going into the 3rd house might be the very beginning process of being like, it's time to go, or it's time to look for a new car. It's time to sit down and have that conversation with a sibling that I've been dreading. Or possibly maybe learning a new skill. That could be something else. You know, if you're wanting to get serious about teaching something, writing something, you know, blogging about something, this is all about making sure all of your ducks are in a row for how you want to communicate, how you want this information to come across. It does come into friction with Mars, which makes me feel like there's scheduling issues or delays, or maybe you need help and somebody to kind of help you put it all together. And work through some of those blind spots. But I think that this is all about how your beliefs shape what ultimately it is your message is going to be for the world. Okay. Let's take a look and see what your cards say, Capricorn. Wow. So we've got the 8 of Swords. You're like, I'm stuck. How do I do this? So Saturn in the 3rd house. Don't let the beginning of this transit trip you up. You're only stuck if you believe that or if you tell yourself that, okay? So it's all about just getting the mind wrapped around these new ideas or these new things that you're going to be doing. Perfect time for like a mentor, like to be checking in with somebody who can give you advice or who can guide you. So that way you're not feeling stuck in your head. The 8 of Swords, generally you see a woman who's like, she looks like she's tied up. She's surrounded by a bunch of swords and she's got a blindfold on. And so in her mind, she's like, how am I going to get out of this? But her hands are not bound. So what I like about the this card in the after deck is that you have like a knight that comes in and like frees her. It's basically saying like, you don't have to be stuck here. So it can be encouraging you to like speak up, to say something, right? To write something, to like stand up for yourself, or just break free mentally from the restraints. And I definitely think that's what's going on with Saturn and Mercury in your sign. You're probably going to be feeling it from the time that Saturn goes, from Mercury coming into conjunction with Saturn. So it's a couple days prior to this. Good luck. Don't let yourself kind of get stuck in that kind of monotonous mindset, okay? We have got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. What's going on, Aquarius? Full moon in your 8th house. Oh boy. So this is change. Change is the name of the game. Release, letting go. Transformation of joint assets and resources. That is the 8th house. Now the moon rules your 8th house. You want to watch for health of female family members. You want to watch for health of pets. There's also a sense of focusing on detoxing, clearing negative emotions, right? Moon in the 8th house. It's in opposition to your 2nd house. So here comes Saturn, here comes Mercury, here comes the sun. This talks about new responsibility in regards to your finances, your resources. And maybe you're buckling down and you're saying, no more. I'm not just going to let money kind of flow out the door. I'm going to manage my subscriptions. I'm making my food. I'm eating at home. I'm, sticking to a budget. And it may be brought on as a result of this full moon because you realize, okay, there's some hangups, there's some delays, right? The 6th house Lord can represent delays. This also makes me feel like this is about possibly paying things. The 8th house is others' resources. So the fact that it's going to oppose, it may be that you have a bill due, but you're waiting for money to come in. There is some sense of some things kind of feeling a bit in limbo. Be very careful because this is all happening in financial houses. This full moon is going to be on the axis of your money versus others, coming into a square with Mars in your 5th. If you're a gambler, if you like to take chances in the market, if there is a sense of you spending money that you don't have, this might come back to bite you in the ass. So just be careful. Equally, it may be a time where you're like, I'm cutting a kid off. They're not getting allowance anymore. I don't know what they're doing with their money. I'm not going to continue to fund things. Perhaps if you are becoming a parent or you're planning on becoming a parent, this can represent kind of a cutting back of the excess spending. So you can really prepare for children, or maybe you're preparing just to feel like you have more resources for hobbies, or you're restructuring the way that you spend money and have fun. Maybe you're kind of like, okay, I'm not going to the bar all the time. I'm not doing that because I want to focus on starting a business, or I'm saving money to invest money. So there is a sense of having to make decisions, and difficult decisions in regards to what you have control over and what brings you joy. But it's not unusual to see with a full moon in the 8th house that there is a sense of letting something go. It's like, okay, I'm not receiving support from that person anymore, or I'm not helping that person anymore. It might be that a boss says, hey, we're having to cut back on expenses, or we're having to lay people off. It might be a spouse that's saying to you, I'm leaving. And I don't, I'm not going to be supporting you anymore, or you need to get a job. Saturn in the 2nd house can be a really significant wake-up call that's like, wow, it's on me. I have to be the one who's going to provide now. And between that planetary shift with Saturn and Pluto coming into your sign, your life is definitely changing and evolving in a very, very big way, in a very rapid manner. And you're going to see this over the next couple of months as you move through a new phase that's really going to be, I think, a bit of a rebirth. All right, so let's see what the cards say for you, Aquarius. No whammies, no whammies. Oh, Ace of Cups. Whatever ends up happening, there is a sense of feeling like fulfilled, right? Fulfilled and appreciative. Perhaps, one door closing is going to allow another one to open. I mean, this is about new opportunities for relationships, love, fulfillment, compassion. Some of you guys may be in a tight spot and somebody says, I've got you, I'm going to help you out. Here you go. If you're waiting for something to come through, a refund, a loan, if somebody wants to give you something out of the kindness of their heart to support you, that may actually very well happen. Could be you that's feeling generous, where you're like, I'm putting my resources into this thing and they don't appreciate it, so maybe I'm going to donate it, or maybe I'm going to give it to somebody who's in need, right? Very working with love and cup runneth over type of vibes. Saturn in the 2nd is going to be working on your self-esteem. So a little bit of self-love goes a long way. Good luck, Aquarius. We have got Pisces and Pisces rising. Welcome to the shift show. You got a full moon in your 7th house. It's all about relationships and other people. It will be happening around 16 degrees. Don't mind that degree. And what happens when we have a full moon in the 7th? Well, it's all about other people, okay? Conclusions in regards to other people. Other people can be acting Looney Tunes. Other people might say, hey, I want to be together, or hey, I can't do this anymore, but there's some dramatic decision about relationships. And for the life of me, that full moon happening right as Saturn comes into your sign makes me feel like it's less about what they say to you. It's more about you observing somebody else's actions and behaviors with your 7th house Lord Mercury in the 1st conjunct Saturn. And it may be a period of you being like, I'm good, peace, I'm done here. This doesn't work for me. That's my line. You crossed it. No, I'm sorry. I can't work with you anymore. I can't collaborate with you anymore. I'm not in love with you anymore. I gotta go. Like, these things can come up. I'm never gonna candy coat it with you guys. Especially with Mercury trying to South node, that you're realizing maybe in some certain situations that it's like, it's better to be alone than to feel alone. Some of you guys may also be looking at things going like, I give way too much to other people. I need to put more energy and emphasis into me, my body, my life, my needs. Yes, Pisces energy, you know, is lonely, right? Especially with Saturn and Neptune being in your 1st house. It's about learning to be at peace being on your own and holding space to be with the right people, right? Who are worthy of kind of being around you and not getting slimed by others. When I say others, I don't just mean romantic relationships. It can be clients, it could be your family, right? Your living situation. If there's been a lot of tension with home, family, roommates. A lot of you guys have been moving, going back and forth, trying to figure out where you want to go. Mars is still in a square, and you might feel like you've gone into a place where you're like, I don't really feel welcome. I'm out. Mars is the focal point. And being that it's creating conflict with the moon and also all these planets in your 1st house, you really want to pay attention to your health, pay attention to your body, what's going on energetically and emotionally. Take care of all of those energy bodies, right? Your physical, mental, spiritual, all that stuff. You guys have to be constantly checking in with yourself and making sure that you're putting up that psychic shield, taking your salt baths, using your smudging, like whatever you need to do to not absorb other people's stuff. And it can be hard because the moon is reflective. So it'll be like people reacting to you being like, I need some space. And they may not like the fact that you're suddenly standing up for yourself. Yeah, there can be conclusions in relationships. There can be a sense of being like, I'm good, I'm done, I'm leaving. But there can also be, let's work it out. I'll give you your space. What do you need? Okay, I'll work on it. You know, and there can also be big decisions that are made within relationships about where you're going to be living. So if you've been back and forth with a relationship, trying to figure out, do we stay together? Do we part ways? Where do we live? You might find a conclusion soon. If you've been going back and forth with family about a living situation, you might find a conclusion soon. But all roads lead back to you, Pisces, with what your vision is for your life, your future, right? And anything that happens kind of has to fall into those specific limitations, expectations, right, for your space. But be mindful also that with Saturn and Neptune in your sign, there can be unrealistic expectations. There can be a sense of holding yourself back. There can be like lone wolf syndrome. And I feel like this is definitely going to be impacting something going on with your home or your emotions. Watch for other people and actions with other people to set that off and maybe show you where you need better boundaries, right? Let's see what the cards say for you. And with the 7th house Lord being in your 1st house conjunct Saturn, makes me feel like other people are being very critical of you and maybe trying to tell you how you should behave, what you should do, and you're like, no, I'm not doing that. And you've got Jupiter in your 2nd house, so you're just really focusing on like, I gotta focus on me, I gotta be building, I gotta be also focusing on resources and not feeling like you have to be reliant on other people or be taking care of other people. Huge theme. King of Wands, I like it. I like it for your wateriness. It's about channeling more of that fire energy, which is really good for you. King of Wands can be a fire sign, okay? So it can be an Aries, a Leo, or a Sag. This can be talking about feeling more direct, more powerful, more in control. Also creative, right? Being like, this is what I'm creating, this is what I'm doing. And Pisces energy is weird in comparison to Aries. There is a sense of being like, I don't know, but my intuition is just telling me don't do this thing, right? And so you're going to feel a lot of that through this full moon. For the next 2 weeks, you're going to feel a lot of this. It's going to be like, something's telling me, don't do this, hold off, wait. And then you'll know right when we get into Aries season, like, oh, that's why I did that, because of this opportunity. Like, I needed to create space for new things to arrive, especially financially, for you to be really finding your own way to building your own resources, not feeling reliant on partners, not feeling reliant on family, feeling like you're really breaking free and you're giving yourself the authority to be more assertive with, you know, the investments that you're making in your life, in yourself. Obviously, I say that because, you know, Jupiter is one of your chart rulers hanging out in the second. So much opportunity to be bringing in more in resources, but you can't do that if you're getting bogged down with relationships or with family-related drama. So listen to your intuition, really pay attention, because if it's telling you put your hands out and ask for some space, I really recommend that you do that, okay? All right, guys, it has been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for staying and listening to my presentation on this full moon in Virgo. I hope it's a good one for everybody. I'm going to hold space for that, even though I know it's going to be a little wacky the next 2 weeks. Let me know, how are you doing with these energies? How are you feeling? You can come back after the full moon and let me know how some of these predictions played out. I love to hear where you guys are tuning in from. So if you're new to my channel, make sure you give me a thumbs up and you say hello. Drop me a message and let me know where you're watching from. Seen so much growth in the community on my page. I appreciate you guys so much. You can support me always by going to my PayPal. You can make donations. You can show up on one of my live shows that we have on Friday nights. We alternate and do tarot or astrology readings every week. This particular week, we are going to be doing astrology. So I'm going to post the link actually today if you guys want to sign up in advance. It gets busy, so you might want to do that. And you can also join my memberships. There's 3 different levels if you want to support me creating this long format for you guys, putting out as much high quality content for everybody, so everybody can listen and benefit from it. But because of donations and people who join my memberships, it makes it possible for me to do this more full time. So you're supporting me as a YouTube creator. And if you guys like my style, if you want to book a reading with me, you can go to my website below at beyondtheveiledtarot.com. I have openings in my book that start in May and June of 2023. So if you have a birthday coming up, or if you want to gift a reading for somebody, or you want to have me take a look at your transits or your natal chart, I'd be happy to do so. I also have courses on my website where I teach you beginners tarot and astrology. So check it out, sign up for my newsletter. I've always got new courses coming out every few months. There will be some new stuff probably coming out closer to the end of summertime, okay? That's all for me. Happy full moon, and I will see all of you guys very soon. Take care.